Hello, everyone. This is Sonia with Real Talk from the Heart with Sonia, and this is Setting Boundaries in Love Part 2. And if you were able to hear Part 1, I did leave off with the idea that good boundaries help us care for others because I believe we have a stable foundation to operate from. And so to continue with this idea of setting boundaries in love, I thought I would take a look at what do we do when we have trouble saying no and setting boundaries. And I think that when we are struggling with that, we might find ourselves avoiding speaking the truth in love. And we may not fully realize that because we're struggling to set boundaries, that we can sometimes, without meaning to, end up enabling selfish or irresponsible behaviors in the very people that we're trying to help and care for. And if we find that we're always trying to please them and maybe even walking on eggshells because we're afraid of upsetting them, I think the result of that can be that we can sadly lose a sense of ourselves and lose track of what we need and what's important to us, or even lose track of what God has called us to do. But if we have found ourselves in this situation at some point, hopefully we're going to realize that we aren't being, true to ourselves, and we aren't being our true God created, God redeemed, and authentic selves, and that it will be hopefully be very motivating for us to want to start to set boundaries, not just for others, but for ourselves, because I believe it's really the loving thing to do for everyone involved. And I just want to mention that I think people who are especially sensitive-hearted and prone to take other people's problems kind of really to heart in a deep way might, really be struggling, might have a tendency to struggle in setting boundaries. And sometimes, we can find that we're dealing with anger, resentment, stress overload, and burnout. But again, I think it's really motivating. It can be a motivator for us to start getting over the idea, that having to set some boundaries, to say no sometimes, is not being mean or unloving to another person. Because again, I believe it's actually loving to everyone when we are able to do that. So, as we come to that realization that we do need to start setting some boundaries, I think it will be helpful, at least I'm hoping it will, to look at Jesus's words in Acts 20, verse 35, where he says, it's more blessed to give than to receive. And I think what's encouraging about that is it seems to give us the idea that God does want us to be cheerful givers. So there must be a way to do it. And again, if we're giving out of compulsion, pressure, or emptiness, we probably aren't experiencing I think the grace of God abounding within us that would cause us to become cheerful givers. So again, I think this is hopeful because with the grace of God, I believe we have the ability, the empowering ability of being a cheerful giver, where we can really say it is more blessed to give than to receive. And so I think I'll go ahead and wrap it up right here for part 2, but I look forward to being back with you again soon to continue talking about setting boundaries in love in part 3.